The fact that the extremists are now not extreme enough. Jim Jordan, not extreme enough because he's going for Kevin McCarthy. Marjorie Taylor Greene, now in a death match with Lauren Boebert, not extreme enough, right? Lauren Boebert, of all people, calling Marjorie Taylor Greene cuckoo. Bitch, you posted a Christmas card with all of your children with weapons of mass destruction, and somehow Child Protective Services is not called on you. The audacity of caucasity. Anyway, I say this to say that what should be terrifying, right, while we're all eating popcorn and we're watching the dramedy play out, is that it's going to turn into a horror show for the American people. They can't put together enough votes to get a speaker. They are not going to put together enough votes to pass any legislation. And the matter is at hand that they are evolving in their extremism. The report that came out at the end of the year showed us that if not for just, a couple of folks who were holding down the fort in MAGA-dom, in Trump's kingdom, we would have had a full-fledged coup. But we're still operating like this shit is normal.
Yeah, and it's not normal. And I'm glad you opened up the podcast, giving people the historical context that this is the first time this has happened in 100 years. By the way, that went on. How many rounds was that? Like more than 100, right? Until they finally got it?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
I feel like right now, McCarthy is dug in, right? Because McCarthy does have 200 plus votes. He has the majority. And I think on the DL, McCarthy is backed up by a lot of the quote-unquote Republican donors who appear to be sophisticated and normal and work in corporations and sit on the boards, right? And have an air of legitimacy and adulthood. And they realize that, wait, we can tolerate the extremists as long as we have them on a leash. And this is where I believe it's important to make the historical connection, right? Like a lot of folks are saying, it's just the 20 extremist Republicans, but the Republican Party is sane. And I say, where have you been for the past 50, 60 years, right? This is the inevitable consequence of this metastasizing cancer that they have fed, right? They have nurtured the Southern strategy on steroids. How would you think this would end when you literally emboldened racists and segregationists, right? And people who have this white grievance and white rage, and you did the Willie Horton campaign to nuke Mike Dukakis, right? And when you went along with David Duke as a potential candidate, he almost won, by the way, folks. People forget that. When David Duke ran, he got like an absurd amount of votes in Louisiana, if I recall, right? What do you think was going to happen when Marjorie Taylor Greene is sitting there at a golf club next to Donald Trump? What did you think is going to happen when Donald Trump is sitting there eating with Kanye and Nick Fuentes? What did you think was going to happen when a majority of your seated, or who were supposed to be seated, Republicans were elected in the 2022 elections, are people who promote the big lie? This is what happens. This is the Republican Party, and this is a conservative movement. And I say it's not just the Republican Party, it's the entire conservative ecosystem. Let's not forget Fox News, the podcasts, the TV shows. Ginny Mother effing Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, who still isn't investigated. The funders. It's the entire movement, Danielle. And if this was black and brown folks doing this type of terrorism, this type of stochastic terrorism, like what would happen? What would happen in this country? Pardon me for my rant, but I just feel like it's one of those situations where we coddle and nurture white rage, and then we're shocked that white rage does this.
You know, it is, I don't even want to go down the what if it were us, right? What if it were Black, Indigenous people of color? What if it were BIPOC people? What if it were queer people? Because we know what it is. And I think that, to your point, this is exactly what happens when instead of arresting white domestic terrorists, we want to do case studies. We want to empathize. We want to understand why you wanted to invade the Capitol building and shit in the halls of democracy, right? We're not saying to them, oh no,
literally shit in the halls of democracy.
Literally shit in the hall of democracy. We're not calling it terrorism. right? We're saying, oh, it's aggression. Oh, it was a protest. Oh, it was anything other than what the fuck we saw with our eyes, right? What do we think is going to happen, to your point, when you have a Justice Department that is giving slaps on the wrists to people who walked into the halls of democracy armed, right? What do we think is going to happen, right, to our government when you have those same folks that stood on that stage on the ellipses that are still able to get reelected into government, right? And be sworn in.
You get this, Danielle.
You get this. Over the holiday, right, Waj? I'm home on Long Island. And, you know, all the wall-to-wall coverage on Long Island was obviously George Santos, right? My family's from Suffolk County. George Santos was elected in a district in Nassau County. There are 2 counties on Long Island, folks. And the coverage about George Santos went from like entertainment, right? Like, can you believe this? To just like absolute shock. To the point where the Republicans of Nassau County were like, we're not renominating this guy in 2024. But I'm saying, oh, so you should get a pat on the back? Why aren't you calling for his resignation right now?
Because they need the votes.
Because you need the votes. Why was a George Santos allowed to become a member of Congress? Because of Donald Trump. Because of the normalizing of the grifting and the lying.
That's right.
That we have allowed to, like you had said, metastasize.
Yeah.
In this country, we normalized it. Oh, it's totally fine that members of Congress are shifting their holiday parties from their normal places to the Trump location on on Pennsylvania Avenue.
And paying him an absurd amount of money. That's what Bill Barr did.
Totally normal that the Vice President of the United States, when he was flying into Scotland, decided to stay at a Trump property that was 2 hours away from the meeting that he was actually having in Scotland. That's what Mike Pence did, folks. And the media
And also, Danielle, now you're on this thread and people forget, Saudis did it, foreign governments did it. They realized it's a way to literally pay for play. And we found out over the holiday break that Donald Trump didn't pay taxes in the United States, paid taxes in China, though, and some other foreign countries.
I mean, it's just like, it's so, like when you lay it out, I get nauseous because I'm just so enraged by the fact that wealthy, white, cis, hetero men get to do whatever the fuck they want. And everyone else either infantilizes them, like a Susan Collins who says, he'll learn his lesson, right? Or they deitize them. Only Donald can fix it. And so we wonder, how do we get here? And we're laughing at this show, but I'm like, honestly, the 75 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump for a second time in 2020, the 53% that grew to 56% of white women that voted for Donald Trump, they're the ones that are the problem, and I'm not laughing.
That's right. You know, we shouldn't laugh because George Santos, I mean, for those who haven't followed, the latest lie, I mean, how many? Lied about his employment, lied about his family, lied about his mom dying in 9/11, lied about being Jewish, lied about his family dying or surviving the Holocaust, lied about financial crimes, and as of 2 days ago, we found out that Brazil is after him for some financial crimes that he allegedly committed in that country. That man is waiting to be seated. He can't be seated right now because of the Republican dysfunction, because they can't elect a speaker of the House. But he will sit because they need his votes, and McCarthy needs his votes. But you make a very interesting point that, yes, we laugh at it, but the connection that isn't being made is George Santos. First of all, it's not the talented Mr. Ripley, because Mr. Ripley had talent and didn't get caught. So I'm offended by that analogy that a lot of people are making. But there's almost like you have to admire, and I know what I'm saying, folks. I say this while with a little vomit in my throat. You have to admire the shamelessness of the lies.
I know.
Because he realized, well, if Donald Trump can lie pretty much every time he speaks and tweets, and he can be a vulgarian, and he can be racist, and he is not only tolerated, but praised, why not me? And so what I've been telling folks is George Santos is right where he belongs. He's not an outlier. I mean, the GOP should embrace him. Like, come, you're one of us. You're a little bit more talented and a little bit more reckless when it comes to lying, but we've kind of given it a pass for everyone else, especially our leader, Donald Trump. So why are they acting all like, ashamed? And you saw the photos of him, being shunned by all of his colleagues. I'm like, they should give him a bear hug. He should be sitting there with them in the huddle. The fact that he's being made as an outlier, I think it comes back to our theme, right? This is why it's important, because sometimes media institutions fail to connect the dots. These are not outliers.
No.
These are the natural end results of a Republican Party that has voluntarily chosen to invest in white rage, anger, conspiracy theories, grievance, and lies. What else do you expect? I'm surprised it's only 20 House Republicans. And again, it's a prediction. Let's see. We'll find out tomorrow when we get to round 7. I don't think McCarthy has a chance. And if anything, that 20 is going to grow to 25 and 30 and 35 once other Republicans realize that these 20 insurrectionists that we've strengthened are like a fortress and they're going to just stand their ground.